first clear instance of her prophetic inspiration in the Old Testament is seen in Deborah, who roused the people of Jehovah to the battle for independence against Sisera. Since you guys are here, turn to Galatians 4, verses 21 through 31.
All right. You guys should have read Galatians 4, 21 through 31. And Paul is emphasizing, like he's been emphasizing throughout all of Galatians, that it's not by works and by the law, but by faith in the grace of God that you have salvation. And Paul gives two examples in this passage. One is Sarah, and that's the example of faith. And one is Hagar, and that's the example of by doing it yourself or by living by works. So if you remember, God promised Abraham a son, but Abraham tried to take matters into his own hands, and he had a baby with Hagar, a slave woman, and that son was Ishmael. And we know that's not the promised son God promised to Abraham, and that would come later on. But Abraham never lost faith. Abraham always believed that God would give him that promised son, and so did Sarah. And so if you look in Romans 4, one of my favorite verses, it says, Abraham was good as dead, and Sarah was 90 years old. So Sarah was 90 and Abraham was 100 years old, or good as dead, when he had Isaac. And this just shows the power of God. This just shows the grace of God. Abraham and Sarah did nothing to earn Isaac. They did no good works. They did nothing that made God be gracious and give them the son Isaac. All they did was have faith in God, and they believed. And those are the two examples. Sarah had faith, and she believed in God that God would give them the son that he promised. And the example of works is by Hagar and Abraham. Abraham took matters into his own hands. He didn't think the son was coming right away. He got impatient, and he just wanted to have that son that God promised now. And so we do that a lot. A lot of times we take matters into our own hands, and we're not always strong in faith. But God still has grace on us, and God is still gracious to us. And if you look in verse 28, it says, "Now you brothers, like Isaac, are children of the promise." So Paul is telling us that we are children of the promise. There was nothing that we did to earn that. We didn't pray harder. We didn't do more good works. It was all by the grace of God. And if you remember, God told Abraham to kill Isaac and to sacrifice him. And so Abraham was taking Isaac to Mount Sinai to sacrifice him to God. But right before that, right before he killed Isaac, God sent a ram. And that was in place for Isaac. And that ram represents Jesus. And that ram, and Jesus is the ultimate sacrifice for us. But we are like Isaac, and we are like the children of the promise. God saved us. There's nothing special that we did. There was nothing Isaac could do. There's nothing we can do. Isaac was hopeless, and so were we. But God still had grace on them, and he still saved Isaac, and he still saved us. And so how can we apply this to our lives today? I mean, in any situation, it's hard to have faith a lot of times. A lot of times we want to be like Abraham, and we want to take matters into our own hands. But as we see, that's not the right thing to do. The right thing to do is have faith in God no matter how hard the times are, and to trust in God. And to remember that no matter how many good works we do, that's not going to earn us salvation. That the only way we can have salvation is by the grace of God, and by having faith in him. And just remember always that you're children of the promise, that God loves you, and there's nothing that you did to deserve that. And so just thank you guys for listening. I hope you guys just continue to stay connected with the youth, keep on taking the polls on Instagram, and we hope to be back in church in the next couple of weeks. So we'll just see you guys, and have a good rest of the weeks in quarantine.